Are you going to do that, Ollie?
We are recording.
All right, sounds good. All right, I'd like to welcome y'all to our March 23rd, 2021 speaker series. We have two great presentations today. First up is going to be Chris Aiken, GISP, Changing Needs of the GIS Industry is his topic. 20 plus years in GIS managerial role. He's got his bachelor's and he has bachelor's from A&M, and he has a master's degree in GIS for business and service planning from University of Leeds in England. And so, looking forward to hearing Chris present as well. We also have Dr. Chetan Tiwari, and he is going to be talking to us about bridging the gap between education and industry. UNT's new GIS plus computer science program, which should be great. And Dr. Tiwari is a health and medical geographer. His interests lie with intersections of geographic information system, spatial analysts, and public health. So he's a professor at UNT, University of North Texas. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you all. Chris Aiken's up first. And again, thank you all for being with us, and we much appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Brian. I'm going to get started here. So again, I'm Chris Aiken, I'm GIS manager. Kind of want to just talk a little bit about what I'm seeing from the industry these days and just kind of how it's evolving, and then that'll lead into the Chetan and the UNT program and how it's going to start hopefully filling some of these needs. We all get asked, what is GIS? And we've got our typical answers, and it's the pretty maps, Google Earth on steroids, whatever. May even start talking about looking at information spatially. But what if we answer those a little differently? Some ways that I often answer that question, first off is apply, ask the other person what they do for a living. And then you can spin GIS to it, whether they're a school teacher or a doctor or forestry, urban manning, there's spatial context, almost everything. But the big thing off of that, when I talk to people about selling GIS, is talk about the solution, not just the technology. Why are we doing GIS? What problems can it solve? Oftentimes we overhype GIS rather than the problems that it can solve. The other aspect is, when I'm talking to people, is talking about GIS is, in a very, very simplistic terms, it's an Excel spreadsheet with a map on top of it. It's funny, just that simplistic of a definition, people start to get, they get spreadsheets. The rows in that spreadsheet are something on the map, whether it's a point, a road, some kind of feature on there. And then we can add whatever columns we want. That seems to click with a lot of people. That's a good way to also think about it. And from when you start talking very simplistic of what GIS can do, the Excel example works. But when we start talking beyond that, the other way I start to talk about GIS is it's connecting these disconnected systems and these databases. It's GIS is a lot of systems integration. People don't always think about that, especially when you're in school, about the power of GIS, and it's taking all of these separate systems and making them talk together, start interacting together, and it just happens to have a spatial context. Once we have all that data, then we can start doing some pretty good analysis and start doing some real critical thinking about it, capital planning, forecasting, whatnot. But we start getting really deep into that real technical side of that disparate systems. And so off of that, let's kind of talk about what this roadmap has been and is going. For those of us who've been in the industry for a long time, like I said, I've been doing it for 20 years or so now. Back in the day, especially just in the Esri world still, there was, old complex systems that were just cumbersome, very manual. For those who've been around, remember Arc Info, Arc Editor, where you had to really type your program, type what you wanted it to do. I remember just the code for printing was PS/R/plus. That's just a print. The ArcIMS solution was basically kind of doing what ArcGIS Online is now, but just very manual, very expensive, very laborious. And from that, nowadays we're in a much simpler environment. I want to say it's simple, but it's simpler. It's so much easier to use. A lot of these systems are connected, or a lot of the data is connected, with the cloud hosting and things like that. Arc Online or some of these other online platforms are software as a solution, the cloud-based. But I say also a lot of this, what it really comes down to is still a lot of data visualization, understanding what you have, where is it, being able to put these tools in your hands, such as, Arc Pro, Arc Online, Collector, and I didn't put things on here. There's the open source QGIS and all of those. But I think we're in a world right now where we're into just a lot of simple data collecting, data visualization, putting it into the hands of people. And trust me, there's a lot of power with it. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit with that. We're making a lot of strides. But where are we going after this is kind of where to keep thinking about this. And, tomorrow we're just going to keep expanding. GIS, we all are battling with this acceptance in our organizations, but it's continually getting, further acceptance, other departments, executive level buy-in. And with that comes further integration, with other systems and other applications and other databases. And again, those are moving beyond your typical GIS systems. Databases and systems that don't have a spatial, they're not looking at it spatially necessarily at the beginning, but we can start integrating that spatial component to it. And with that, it's becoming much more technical. There's a lot more needs. When we start going enterprise wide, there's a lot more rules and regulations, especially from the IT side, a lot more interactions with databases, servers, programming, and development. And I'm talking beyond the Python type things, when you start talking C# or .NET or things like that, when we really start diving deep into that, this is how we start integrating all of these systems even more so. Some of you out there may be saying, well, we're already doing that. And it's true. There are a lot of people still doing this or that are doing this now with this integration. I think still a vast majority of organizations are not there yet. And then even those that are there, I think it's just going to continue to explode and continue to blossom on where this acceptance and growth will be. But again, this is really driving to that technical side, away from the GIS aspect. And then with that, we are all dealing with these problems now, and I think this is just going to get worse. We have our IT folks over here going, man, those GIS people just don't get the IT aspect. They're going to break things if we give them access to it. We got our GIS folks over here going, that IT, man, they don't know what spatial data is. They don't know GIS. Just can I get them out of my way so I can do what I need to do? We're all dealing with that, especially when you start talking about enterprise deployments. And this is just going to continue to get more of a not, let's say, an argument or a discussion or conversation point about how do we get these two disparate entities kind of aligning each other. And so that's kind of where I'm seeing this need developing. There's really a need for emergence, from the GIS, IT, computer science aspect, being able to have those combined capabilities. I've got this image on the left of, one person has some knowledge and the other person has another bit, one's GIS, one's IT, but we really need to be able to have them kind of thinking more aligned. Not to say everybody needs to be an expert in both sides of it, but, have some strong skills, strong capabilities. That way we can start aligning those two together a little bit better. And really, I think that's going to afford the GIS industry to really take that next step in growth. So that's where it kind of leads to the UNT program. Chaitan and I have been talking about this for a while. I've been very excited to see what they had coming down the pipeline and been active in talking to him and the UNT team on this. So I think the program that they're coming up with or have come up with this GIS plus computer science is really going to start addressing a lot of these needs that I'm seeing coming down the pipeline. Again, we're in a very simplistic time right now with the data visualization, but it's just going to continue to get more and more complex. And so I think the UNT program is going to really be that first catalyst to start aligning those a little bit more. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Chaitan and let him talk a little bit about UNT's program they've got up and running. I'll stop sharing.
Great, thank you very much, Chris. Let me get that right. Right, I think I got the right screen. Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Ollie, and folks at Erisa for allowing us to present and share some of the work that we've been doing in terms of developing this degree. Thanks to Chris again. You've really been a sort of champion of sorts for our program, and really appreciate your support. And I see there are several other folks in the audience who we've consulted with, during the development of this program. Tom Frenzel, Tim Nolan, Aldo Avinia, if he's here. But we've sort of bounced these ideas off of you, as we've gone through the process of developing this program. So we really appreciate all the support that that you all have provided as we've gone through this journey of developing this program. What's also I think a little bit telling about this program is that since we had our initial conversations to the time the degree was approved by the state, I was surprised at how quickly it went. Within a year, I think, or about a year, we went from idea to state approval of the program. So I think that I think demonstrates some of the interest that exists within our university, but also at among the state coordinating boards, and in terms of the sort of attractiveness of this program. So that was it's just been a very promising journey as we've thought about building this program and gone through the process of actually putting it together. We're really excited, and we're hoping that this generates a lot of interest among among sort of the next generation of GIS professionals. So that said, just to pick up a little bit on what Chris was saying, in terms of this need for integration, we've been doing a little bit of work looking at COVID dynamics over the past couple of months, and there's obviously a spatial component to it. What's surprising and interesting to some extent is, if you think about the dynamics of the disease itself, and you say, what are current guidelines, about social distancing and such, and the talk is about 6 feet distances or 3 feet distances, right, 3 meter distances, and so on. Yet, when you think about a lot of the spatial components of how COVID data are at least being publicly made available, they're all at the county scale. So there's this dramatic disconnect, between the spatial resolution at which the disease dynamics occur and the spatial resolution at which data are commonly becoming available, for public health decision makers, right? I mean, there's a big difference between 6 feet and aggregated counts at the county level. And I don't think the issue is necessarily that data aren't available. I mean, the individual level data are being collected. Data is messy. We've been working with some data sets from a company called Safecraft. It's mobility data. Just massive volumes of data that tell you a lot of interesting stories about interaction among populations, movement of people in space, and how does that impact things like COVID dynamics and COVID outcomes. So clearly there's a move towards I don't think there's lack of data is the problem, right? And I don't think lack of methods are the problem either, right? I mean, folks in computer science, for example, commonly and geography commonly work with large data sets and complex methods that involve machine learning and AI. And I think as we started thinking about this degree, that was part of our motivation, right? As we were saying, well, we need to really start thinking about formalizing this integration between these two disciplines. And I think that's where our competitive edge lies. As far as our program is concerned, we've had a good run with GIS, and I think a lot of our alumni are in the DFW area. And as we're thinking about the next 10-15 years, of where our GIS program is heading, partly this is the competitive edge that we're thinking about. So that said, a lot of this started by doing a very early search of job ads. So some of these are coming from about a year ago, and we did an extensive search trying to look at the market demands, and this is mainly the DFW area, where we extended this across the country. And I have two sort of representative examples here the kinds of ads that we came across, right? These are ads for job postings. And the first one is, it's very clear, right? ArcGIS feature creation query tools, experience with GIS data verification, confirm accuracy and so on and so forth, right? The nuts and bolts of GIS. So these are things that I think we all work with, right? Our GIS programs, our certificate programs, I think to a large extent address some of these skill sets. The second one is also interesting, and it's a little bit different. Where you see that, in fact, we were surprised to see this about a year ago, where it does very explicitly outline the need for a bachelor's degree in computer science /GIS. And I think the slash over here is not implying a combination, but they're saying either computer science or GIS, right? And if you go down and take a look at some of the other requirements, they're saying, the database mapping, LAN, WAN, microcomputer, mobile device applications and such, right? So clearly you're starting to see, I think what Chris was alluding to earlier, this need for IT skills as well as GIS. Now a little bit more searching, and we found some more interesting nuances between between these two. And so the one on top is the one that we just discussed, but the one below was also interesting. And in fact, I pulled this out this morning, right? So this is a job ad that was posted on Indeed. Again, very interesting. And you can see that there's a subtle difference here between the two. The second one gets into data analysis, modeling, right? Machine learning, deep learning, as well as, I think what's interesting is over here is to strengthen and develop relationships with clients as well as GIS staff. So again, the difference over here is we're seeing sort of we're thinking of the listing on top is really being sort of more IT focused, IT oriented, and the one below sort of moving into a slightly different domain, right? AI, machine learning, more sort of computer science-ish almost, and we're thinking that perhaps there is the need for some at least informal tracks within the degree, one that sort of leads towards specializations in IT, more sort of computer networks, security management, database management, developing enterprise systems and things like that. And then another pathway that leads down sort of the more computer science pathway, which is machine learning, AI, and things like that. So this is kind of where we started, was to do a basically an industry survey or a survey of industry needs. And I think it was clear to us that there are really sort of three opportunities here, right? Core, fundamental, nuts and bolts GIS, right? The sort of bread and butter GIS courses, a GIS with a focus on IT, and then GIS with a focus on computer science. And that's sort of the the basic framework for our degree. I also thought we did a survey as well, and we'd asked several of our colleagues about what their opinions were in terms of this degree and where they thought the GIS+CS degree would fit into their own organizations. And I pulled out a few excerpts from the surveys, which I think are interesting. So the first question that we asked was, do you agree that cloud computing, big data, and things like that are important within your organization? And I think majority of the responses were saying yes, right? In fact, one of them says yes, it already is, right? We're working on different projects to collect large amounts of data with major impacts to our scope of work. And these are our GIS divisions within these organizations, right? So the other response here is yes. However, the path and startup cost to implement these types of data collection are sometimes expensive for us to overcome. Perhaps alluding to this need to have resources or employees that can really sort of bridge the two ends of the spectrum. We asked, do you feel students from GIS programs across the DFW Metroplex have an adequate understanding of computing IT infrastructure that powers how GIS data are collected and used in your organization? I think this was very telling. It was very reinforced what we were thinking. We had one response that said, if the student has a programming background or minor, I feel they're more prepared for all possible GIS jobs. Additionally, there's a definite lack of IT infrastructure knowledge, right? It's a key point. And this last one over here, we need staff that are familiar with systems administration and development. Again, sort of really emphasizing the need for having those IT skill sets, and or at least enough IT knowledge to be able to communicate with IT teams within organizations. I think half the challenge often is just being able to speak the right language and communicate needs in ways that are meaningful, to these different stakeholders. Couple of other interesting questions. Again, I just pulled out a few examples over here. What is the level of collaboration or cooperation between IT and GIS? One of the responses was, we are the IT GIS team, right? Again, I think speaking to the need to have students with these integrated skill sets. Another response says that we communicate and collaborate on needs and plan architectures together, right? So again, as you think about systems architecture, what are the needs? I think it's really important to have, as Chris was saying, GIS perspectives in terms of fundamentally what are we trying to do, but also be able to speak the appropriate language that folks in IT are accustomed to. As you look to fulfill GIS needs within your organization, do you feel that students majoring in a field that blends computer science and GIS with perspective from liberal arts and social sciences will have an advantage? And this was actually an important question for us. In fact, it was an important question from our dean, who basically asked us and said, well, this is a degree in geography, and you need to be able to justify that why this degree should be situated in the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences and not in the College of Engineering. And I think that was a really good question, and prompted us to take a step back and think about what are we trying to achieve here. And one of the responses, says definitely our organization offers GIS solutions, but I think this line that's underlined here captures really the sentiment. It says each solution requires knowledge of GIS, end user needs and processes, and background knowledge in the area of expertise, right? So public health or emergency services training, water resources, sustainability, environmental science, things like that, right? So fundamentally, as we were thinking about building this program, we're saying, well, clearly there's a need to integrate GIS and CS, but we also need to maintain our identity as geographers, right? And so fundamentally, this is a degree that's housed in the Department of Geography. So it was sort of an interesting process, right? As we were thinking about, what are we trying to achieve, right? So now we've got nuts and bolts GIS, GIS and IT, GIS and computer science, and all of these, we'd like to fit them under the umbrella of geography more generally, right? So, and that is our design philosophy here, right? That's what we wanted to achieve as we started thinking about this degree. Now, on the academic side, we're seeing similar things, right? As we talk to students, who are going through, preview day or visiting departments across campus, I think increasingly we're seeing that career pathways are an important decision criteria for students and their parents, right? It's one of the experiences that we have, and it's not a pleasant experience, but as geographers, we're in this big room with all these different departments across, from across campus. And if you look at just the traffic, the volume of movement of students, prospective students, and their parents, the number of people that end up in the geography booth are traditionally very small, right? And these are folks that already know about geography or just passing by because they're curious. So I think is one of the things that we've been sort of emphasizing and focusing on during these types of preview events is to talk about career pathways, right? About very lucrative career pathways that exist within geography and GIS specifically. So I think these are important decision criteria for students. They're looking for for pathways. They say, well, after we graduate, can we get a job? And I think the GIS industry is big and it's growing, and the GIS+CS, the specialization, we think will be a niche market for the next couple of years, and is projected to only increase over the next decade at least. I think students to some extent are drawn to technology, right? So not to de-emphasize other subjects, but I think there is a level of comfort, working with technology that is what we're saying. GIS, I think, increasingly is vital across disciplines. On our campus, GIS is being used by multiple departments, right? Emergency management, public health. Our introductory GIS class is typically, 1/3 geography majors, and the rest of the classes consists of students from a variety of other disciplines. So it is becoming a vital, component of academic programs, required part of the degree requirements of many programs across campus. The technology and data landscapes are changing. They provide exciting opportunities. Chris was talking about some of these. I think you're all aware of this changing landscape. It's leading to some very exciting opportunities. And I think what we're also able to offer through this degree are some innovative pathways to graduate programs, which I'll talk about here in a couple of minutes. So in terms of meeting those needs, that's hopefully that tells you a little bit about our motivation and our philosophy, going into the development of this degree. And so, we've come up with really sort of 3 pathways that we offer within the department. Our traditional sort of pathway is the GIS certificate that we've had for a very long time. And this is really a 5-course sequence that provides introductory GIS, basic Python programming skills. So those are requirements. And then we've got some elective pathways where people can go down, advanced programming pathways, look at enterprise GIS, remote sensing, or LiDAR. So we've got, this traditional GIS certificate, which, a lot of students in geography take, but we also have a lot of students outside of geography who are interested in the GIS certificate. Emergency management, public health are 2 big programs where there's a lot of interest in, having this GIS certificate as part of their academic profile. We have then the BS, the Bachelor of Science in GIS+CS. We have the informal sort of IT track, and we're thinking of this as being attractive to students who are interested in careers in data management, development, or construction of GIS infrastructure, so nuts and bolts IT. And then we've got the Bachelor of Science in GIS+CS again, and a CS track or a computer science track, where we're combining more sort of statistics, mathematics, spatial analysis, and high demand computer science skills such as machine learning, AI, big data analytics. So slightly different pathways, slightly different career choices, and I think they're all equally lucrative and they're all equally attractive, right? So a lot of it depends on how students develop their interest as they go through the program. All right, so what do students look like? What is the academic profile of students who graduate from this degree? So we're hoping that our graduates will have geographic perspectives to data science, right? So they understand how to work with data. They are able to work with complex data. They're able to work with large data sets, apply innovative techniques to analyze the data, as well as including spatial components, spatial techniques. So we're hoping that students that are graduating from the program are not just data experts or data science experts, but they're able to contextualize and interpret complex geospatial processes, right? So they're able to understand why that spatial perspective is important, why that geographic perspective is important. So we want them to go beyond just analyzing data, but also to explicitly think about the spatial component. So that's I think one of our unique selling points of graduates going through this program. Definitely a sound understanding of computing principles. So the courses that are required as part of the GIS+CS degree focus on foundations of computing, software development principles, information systems, 1 and 2, so there's 2 levels of courses there, and system design. So everyone going through the GIS+CS program will have fundamental understanding of computing principles. And from that point onwards, they can sort of take these 2 different pathways, IT or computer science. Of course, we're hoping that they will graduate with some cutting edge computing skills, either on the data science, data mining, graphics, AI, more computer science side, or on the IT side, thinking about computer security, computer networks, those kinds of things, right? So I think there's a lot of cutting edge topical areas on the IT side as well, right? With cybersecurity and things like that. So complex networking, especially when you're working with large data sets, how do you move data in efficient ways between different software systems? So both on the computer science side, with AI and things like that, but also on the IT side, I think there are some very unique opportunities there. So those are, these are sort of our USPs, right, of students graduating from this program. And yet, again, like I was saying earlier, we do want to acknowledge and recognize that their home is in geography, right? That this is fundamentally a degree that is afforded by the Department of Geography and the Environment. So it's a social sciences liberal arts degree. It's a technical degree. I mean, the students will have great technical skills, both on the GIS side and computer science side, but we're hoping that they'll also have a balanced academic profile, right? So we've got, a couple of pathways within the degree that focus on, courses that we've, it's really sort of a cocktail of courses that we've put together that focus on urban issues, right? So you've got, your GIS+CS, all the technical courses, but you've got an understanding of urban issues, right? Quantitative as well as some qualitative perspectives. Why do cities develop like they do? What are problems in cities? What are transportation problems, right? Think about sustainability initiatives and so on. So, we've got informal pathways in looking at urban issues, definitely health, right? So we've got a strong program in health and medical geography. I'm part of the health and medical geography group. Again, looking at things like both quantitative as well as to some extent qualitative approaches in understanding health. We've got a couple of good programs or courses in anthropology as well that cover different components of understanding the health of human populations. Environment, right? Very strong program in environment, of course, a number of courses. Sustainability, we started a new sustainability certificate as well, and water resources, right? So we've got these sort of 5 focus areas that really, produce a student that has all these technical skills, but again has its context or background information in these sub areas within geography. All right, we've also, what I think makes this also this degree attractive is that we've configured this in a way that students can really double dip in a lot of different areas, right? So of course they're getting the degree. They can potentially get a minor as well. So you might have a student that says, I want to have a BS in GIS+CS, a minor in public health, and the possibility of taking multiple certificates, right? So this could all be integrated into a single 4-year degree plan where a student is graduating with multiple credentials that showcase these different skill sets and capabilities that they have. So we've got a certificate in economic geography, right? Again, taking courses between geography and the Department of Economics. There's a new certificate that we just launched in geophoto. It involves courses with the College of Visual Arts and Design. So it's a really cool certificate that looks at geographic perspectives, but also things like photography and integrating these 2 very diverse disciplines together. Health and medical geography, we just redid the certificate. So we've got a new sequence of courses with health and medical geography. Of course, a lot of interest these days with COVID. Sustainability certificate, also we recently launched this, and then a certificate in water resources. So, again, the idea over here is, of course, we want students to have great technical skills, but we want them to be balanced, right? We want them to have these perspectives or the ability to have these sub-specializations. And we're thinking that this would be, a student graduating with this type of an academic profile would be very, very attractive because, they're just not, they go well beyond just having the technical capabilities that one would expect, right? I mean, this is a balanced, rounded student who understands the technology, but also these other very important perspectives. All right, so we've also thinking about continuing pathways, and I think there's a lot of exciting opportunities here. Of course, we think there are lucrative careers in the industry, both in the public and private sector. So certainly, a job search on one of these job sites speaks volumes, right? I think if you start to plug in keywords like GIS, Python, or machine learning and things like that, you start to see a lot of hits, which is great, right? And I don't think we have students or programs, at least in Texas, that provide this unique blend. In terms of graduate degrees, of course, we recognize that many of our undergraduate students also want to go down graduate pathways. So we've got two master's degrees in our department. We've got a research track that potentially can lead to doctoral programs. We've got a great record of students going on to top-ranked PhD programs. I have students at McGill in Canada, University of Montreal, again in Canada, Ohio State, Michigan State, Rutgers, right? So we've got a history of students who, who, in fact, in many cases, some of them started at the undergraduate level, got a master's degree, a research degree, and then moved on to, highly ranked PhD programs across the US and internationally. In fact, I don't know if many of you are familiar, but in 2017, or a couple of years ago, our department was awarded the best master's granting program in the country by the Association of American Geographers. So we're a highly ranked master's program, and I think there's possibilities of continuing down this pathway through graduate degrees in geography. Of course, there's pathways in computer science as well, and that's part of the motivation that computer science has in terms of collaborating with other departments. There's a couple of degrees that they offer, a Master of Science in Data Engineering, and this is open to students both on the IT track and CS track, cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. So these are open to students both in the IT and CS track. And then finally, there's also Master of Science in Computer Science, and that one's only open to students who are taking the CS track. And part of it's just because of the the prerequisites that are required for master's level courses in these 4 different degrees. There's also some early discussions, and this is very, very early in the process of developing a grad track program. So this is really attractive, right? You've got a student that gets GIS+CS, potentially a minor, potentially a couple of certificates, and can basically count courses in their final year of the undergraduate degree towards their master's program, right? So it basically shaves off a semester from the from a master's degree. So you could have a student potentially go through a bachelor's and a master's in basically a 5.5-year period. So again, becomes very attractive for students who are looking again from a professional standpoint, getting these are all non-thesis degrees. They're professional degrees, but being able to get a master's degree with an additional year and a half of coursework is again pretty attractive. We're also in conversations with the TAMS program, which is the Texas Academy of Math and Science, and Chris has been talking about it quite a bit. But there are we're trying to work with them to see if there are to develop pathways for basically high school students to come in and go through the undergraduate and graduate program in an extremely compressed timeline. So those are still very early in the process, but those discussions are ongoing, and we're interested in seeing some very, very efficient pathways from start to finish. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense of our motivation, where we see the GIS sort of industry moving, and maybe the needs of the GIS industry. How are we trying to fulfill those needs from an academic standpoint? We've had some great partnerships with several folks who are here. We've bounced ideas off of them, and sort of got a lot of feedback as we've developed this program. Thanks to Erisa, of course, for advertising this. We've been talking to a couple of folks from Esri. They've been interested in the degree as well, and just kind of seeing where it goes. And we recently got a little bit of funding from the National Science Foundation. There's a group called the Computing in Undergraduate Education, QNext. In fact, we're thinking about developing templates for other X+CS programs. So that'll be kind of interesting to see. Maybe we might actually have visual arts and computing science, for instance. So I think there's a lot of interest across academia, trying to blend CS approaches. It could either be a CS plus X model, where you've got computer science as the main degree, and then the X is GIS or what have you. Or I think we feel that the X+CS model is a little bit better, where we're very clear about the academic identity of students. So geography plus CS, or economics plus CS, or what have you. So I think you'll see a lot more of these degree programs coming out over the next couple of years, and we're super excited about about where this is going. So I think got about 10 to 15 minutes for questions, and I'll stop the presentation there. Well, thank you all for your attention.
Yeah, very nice. So we appreciate both of you all presenting today, and it was a good presentation. I really enjoyed it. So we're going to go to the chat here, and I'm going to ask my co-host and colleague Ollie to help me out here. We've got some people that are just providing some good statements here. I'll read them off in case some people are on the telephone and we're recording, so they can hear it. I guess one of them is data fusion among agencies for the customer or users is adding to need for combining GIS and IT worlds. It's pretty good. I'll read a couple of them here, then if you all want to address some of them or make a comment. We got Tom mentioned Chris. I've noticed over the years that there's no learning track for GIS administration. Such a learning track would go a long way to align GIS with IT. And one more here, and I'll let you guys answer, is AI, ML, deep learning, and high-powered computing or cloud-like environments, or other examples requiring connection between GIS and IT. So with that said, if you all want to make a comment, but Chris, did anything over the years you've heard of anything on GIS administration?
Yeah, well, I guess you can kind of interpret that one of a couple ways. When you talk about administration, are you talking about the management leadership aspect of it versus the technical, again, the database aspect and getting into the deep technology? I think this program may start addressing the latter aspect, maybe not necessarily the former. When you start talking management and leadership, I think that's not directly tied to just even GIS. It's any kind of leadership, and there's a lot of other programs and solutions to that. But as far as the technology administration, I think this may be a good foray. Now, people that are involved in GIS for a while, yes, you're right though. There's not something that's almost like a refresher course or that gets you up to speed, so you're not learning GIS 101, but trying to dive deeper just into GIS, the computer science or IT side of it a little more.
Yeah, I know Erisa International has the UIL, and that's specifically focusing in on the leadership. And if you all haven't checked that out, but we can go through here. Let's see here. Tom mentions again, it's just understood that the GIS staff will handle it as an auxiliary part of their job. It's definitely not that anymore, just like the AI and analysis or technical maintenance of data is part of GIS. So it's true. Let's see if we can get some questions here. Another statement. Okay, Sandy has one here. Let's do, how does the GIS help new students that may already possess a degree in GIS? In other words, if a student comes in with an associate degree or certificate in GIS from another institution, will this program give credits for applicable classes?
So I think, Sandy, the short answer is yes, right? That so there's a couple of different I think pathways here. So for students, for example, that already have a bachelor's degree, we actually, in fact, one of our students who just graduated contacted me because he was interested in actually trying to get this second degree. And so it's interesting you bring that question up. I was in conversation with folks from our college to see what the mechanics of this would be. And my understanding is that that you can, for a student who's already graduated with a bachelor's degree, there are a certain number of courses that can be double counted. So it does reduce the overall timeline to graduation for somebody seeking a second degree. Now, if you do have a person who's not completed their bachelor's but has an associate degree or is at a community college, of course, many of those courses can transfer over. Of course, there are some rules about which courses can transfer over, but certainly there's a certain number of courses that one can move over to the degree. So that's definitely a possibility. The other option that we actually recommend for students, for example, who already have their bachelor's degrees, to think about a professional master's track. And that could be customized. In fact, the way we're thinking about a professional master's track is to think in terms of modules. So very similar idea, where there's not a thesis required, but we could have these modules of specialization where somebody could say, I'm going to take a bunch of courses in health, right? So 3 or 4 courses in health. I'm going to take a couple of courses in data science or data analytics, and I'm going to take a couple of courses in, I don't know, in sustainability, right? So we're thinking about, I think a professional master's program might also be very attractive, because we are thinking about these as very modular, where after you get the degree, you can somebody could say, we've got a master's with a specialization in these 3 topical areas. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but I think there are a couple of different pathways for people who are seeking to extend their academic credentials.
Okay. I think this question applies, and I don't think you answered it yet, but Dr. Tiwari, do any of these grad degrees apply to like a GIS administration? So the GIS administration question is back, and it is definitely a hot topic of discussion.
Yeah, so I think I think along similar lines at the graduate level, I would a professional master's program would probably be the best way to go. Again, modular, so we could be picking courses, for example, from the College of Business, right, or College of Public Administration, for instance, along with GIS courses. So there's a lot of flexibility in the professional master's program for really creating a very tailored, degree plan. There are, of course, some geography requirements, but they're relatively flexible. So I think there's a lot of customization that can be done, particularly at the graduate level. Yeah.
So we have a couple questions here. One's a statement. I'll go in and leads into another question. It says, like flexibility, understand interdisciplinary nature of GIS is implicit, but good to emphasize it for both recruitment and career development agility. And following that was a question from Tim. Is there enough internships out there to make that a requirement?
So if I can be shameless over here and just ask if you all have need for interns, then we would love to hear about that. So
do you all have some sort of, do you have something set up, or is it just contact you, or is this?
Yeah.
Okay, you do.
I think that would be the best way to contact me. And the way we have it set up is that the internships could also count towards the degree, right? So the students can take a 3-credit-hour course which is listed as an internship, and we're actually working on formalizing that internship a little bit more. So it's we don't want students who are saying, oh, we did an internship and our job was to go pick up trash by the side of the road, right? I mean, that's not going to count towards the degree.
Sure.
So I think as we're thinking about our internship substitution for courses, we want to be very explicit about what are the skill sets that they actually learn. So I think we want to make these internships a lot more meaningful, with a lot more interaction between the entity that is providing the internship and us. So that's a great question, Tim, and I think we're working on formalizing this internship a little bit more, and we're hoping that we're able to set up a couple of these internships in a somewhat more formal and organized manner.
Yep. Well, by all means, if anybody on the call is looking for some interns, then by all means you can contact Erisa Texas. We'll put you in contact with Dr. Tiwari. Be happy to help out and support the cause, because it's definitely great. Julius asked a question here. We're at 2:54, so we got time for a little bit more. Are scholarships offered for GIS professionals who are interested in this GIS+CS program? If so, what are the qualifications?
It's a good question. So there is not a specific scholarship at this point in time. I'm assuming that some of the scholarships that generally apply to undergraduate programs would also apply to this one. But at this point in time, I think unfortunately we don't really have anything specific to the GIS+CS program. Of course, we're still very early. I mean, technically the program's not on the catalogs yet. It'll be listed this year. so again, that's something that we need to think about and develop. But I think at this point in time, I don't think there's anything specific. But I could check with the I could sort of bounce that to folks in the college who may have some more information about specific programs.
And we've got another question here, and this is a good one. Have you considered a management track? Many GIS roles are tech analyst and manager.
Yeah, that's a that's a good one, Tim. And in fact, I think it's somebody else was asking about sort of administration, and of course, that's I think that something that I guess it's overlooked, but potentially. I think we could, because we've got these sort of pathways at the end of the degree, right? That they're going to, water resources or public health and so on. But I think thinking about sort of a management track or a public administration track would definitely be attractive. So I think we just kind of need to put our heads together here a little bit. Maybe Tim, I'll reach out to you and and others to see if you had any ideas about what types of courses would be appropriate. For that type of a, I guess a cocktail of specialization. So yeah, that'll be great. I think we'll it'll be great to get some feedback. And if others have ideas about other potential pathways, I think we'd love to kind of think about those and bounce ideas off of y'all.
I'll chime in on that too. I kind of alluded this a second ago. Is management is independent of the GIS aspect. It's everybody's. Something everybody should look into. And just kind of a side note, there's a podcast and organization that I've really bought into over the years called Manager Tools. They have one, actually, they have two podcasts. They've been doing them since 2005. They have Manager Tools and Career Tools. Careers for anybody, about any kind of aspect of being in a career. Manager Tools are people who are managers, who want to be managers. And I really am a huge advocate of those. There's a lot I've learned over the years. They're worth listening to. You can go to their website. There's chat forums, but it's called Manager Tools. It's a podcast you can find, and it takes a lot of work to think about your management style and how to get into it. But that's a great place to start.
I'm also going to chime in here. Another good place to look for stuff is actually GIS+CS.com. They're trying to push a lot more on the leadership and management side of GIS, and they do an annual virtual conference right now that is excellent. So if you're also looking for things, check out GIS+CS.com.
That's great. GIS+CS.com, is it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Awesome.
If anybody else on the call thinks of something, go ahead and email us, and we'll get it up on the webpage and add it in. Just for
one last plug. Sorry, Brian. Is somebody mentioned is the Erisa Leadership Academy, and that is exactly geared towards what you're asking. It's about management, especially in the GIS world. That's a big one.
It's a good one. I've been to it. It's fantastic. Chris has been to it. It's well worth it. Definitely is. So, well, we got a couple other questions here, but we've got a couple minutes left here. Let's see here. Would a management track consider budgeting approaches for IT and GIS resources and providing ROI examples to leadership?
And Leadership Academy addresses that.
It does, yes. Definitely, I think you should check out the Erisa International. The Leadership Academy would be great. Let's see here. Oh, is there a market for freelance GIS techs? Wow. I think there's always a market. It's just you gotta create a niche.
Market.
I don't know.
Market is the thing, I think.
Yeah. It's a tough one. That's
I think Sunny, you had a good question there too on on engaging high school students, and I think we haven't done a good job of that. There are so many opportunities. I agree. I think that's where I was complaining at the start of the presentation that we've got preview day and nobody comes to the geography desk, right? And I think part of the reason for that is that we're probably just not doing a good job in reaching out to high school students, right? And saying that, hey, geography is interesting. There's all kinds of really neat things you can do, and there are lucrative career pathways. So I think as a professional group, we all ought to be thinking about how do we engage students at that level of their academic career? I mean, we there are a couple of things we do on the academic side, do a guest lecture and things like that. But I think, maybe even, creating internship opportunities for high school students, getting them it's easier said than done, right? Because obviously it's a lot of effort. But I think, it'll be a great idea for all of us to be thinking about, how do we engage students at a much earlier stage in their academic level and their academic careers. So I don't have a good answer, but I think it's a good point.
No, this is a really good discussion. Actually, this would be a great discussion to take off as a separate evening time, open discussion forum type thing. So maybe we'll put our heads together, because that's something I definitely believe in, and it's geo mentoring and things like that. But well, on that note, we're at 1 o'clock here. I appreciate everybody coming today. I think at our max we were at 60. Hopefully, want to thank co-host colleague Ollie Powers for helping me coordinate, or she mainly coordinated this, but it's just helping and taking care of all this. So check out our website and make sure you register for next month's speaker series. We got some good stuff coming up. I want to thank Chris Aiken and Dr. Chetan Tiwari, 2 excellent presentations. This will be posted up on our website and a link towards our YouTube channel, so you can watch this again if you'd like. So, or tell your colleagues. But we'll see you all next month, and appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks all. Have a good one.